Bryony Rose Jennings is a textile sculptor living in the beautiful Hampshire coast in England. Working from home, juggling creature creation with the mothering of her two young sons. Growing up within an artistic family, Bryony has been a creative her entire life. Collecting and hoarding vintage fabrics and embellishments is part of Bryony's very nature. It is from this feathered nest of material that she creates her textile menagerie, creatures that carry a childhood's worth of inspiration and imaginings. Manipulating fabric into form, Bryony's creative process is slow and considered, allowing a personality to develop organically as she wraps, folds, stitches and stuffs, sewing a little soul and some magic into every creature she creates. Her depictions are stylised. Bryony does not attempt to replicate the beauty and perfection of the animal kingdom. Instead, the idea of a specific species informs more surreal interpretation, unbound by reality. Bryony constructs her animals using stuffed shapes and wire armature, embellishing with precious fabrics and using pre-loved household detritus and trinkets to add the glint of an eye or a flash of a claw. Her popular workshops sell out fast, with students being offered the freedom to create their own whimsical creature under the expert guidance of Bryony. I'm looking forward to chatting to her tonight and discover more about Bryony's beautiful work, how she balances life as an artist, international tutor, and mother to her beautiful boys. So without further ado, let's get started. Hello.
Hello.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Oh, did you like your slideshow?
Yes, it was lovely. I spent quite a long time agonising over the photos, so I think it worked quite well.
Oh, it's so beautiful. Your work is so beautiful. And you know, those words were pretty much all yours. I did copy them off your website and off your, but I have to admit, I had to Google some of the words. I had no idea what detritus means or how to even pronounce
that word.
What a great word.
One of my favourite words.
Occasionally more than occasionally I'll come across a word and I'll go, no idea what she's talking about.
I'm trying to sound a bit clever, Ange. It doesn't always work.
I know. I don't know how you guys make such beautiful artist statements. It really must be a hard job.
I struggle with it. I really do. It can be days and days of agonising over it, and I still won't be happy with it. And then I'll go back and read it a couple of weeks later and I'll think, oh, actually, no, that doesn't sound too bad. That's okay. But it is difficult to talk about yourself, isn't it?
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. Well, it's all true. It's all beautiful. Your work's stunning. And I can't wait to just delve a little bit deeper into it tonight. And so it's morning for you and you've just dropped off your kids to school. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just getting over the chaos of my morning.
Yeah. So that's why we put it back a half an hour, because we thought, no, 9 o'clock for you is just too stressful.
Yeah, thank you for that. I would have had a sheen of sweat and a slight manic look in my eye from the back of the school run. So I'm not one of those mums that turns up all polished. I'm just sort of, we get there on a hope and a prayer, really.
Yeah. Well, we've got some friends here with us. Glenys says hello.
Hello, Glenys. Oh, I miss you.
Yeah, and we'll be together again soon. We've got Catherine. Hi, Catherine. Just after 9:30 p.m. Oh, it's a late for you, Catherine.
In wonderful New Zealand. How wonderful.
Yeah, and these are gorgeous. Hi, Vicky. And Noni. Hi, Nones.
Hello, Noni. Oh, it's lovely to see your face.
And Ruth from England. Oh,
she's coming to Unit 12 next year. Wonderful. Fingers crossed that we're going ahead next year.
Yes. Oh, Dolores, hello from Queensland.
Oh, wow. Hello, Dolores.
The land of the free, we call Queensland.
Do you? Oh, yeah, of course.
Half of Victoria is in Queensland right now, including all of our football players.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, but that's okay. We're doing well. Like our borders, not our borders, but our restrictions eased up a bit this week, and Yeah, where we live, it was just so crowded today. It just felt like there was traffic jams along the street, and it was ridiculously busy. So we'll wait and see how it turns out. But
it is mad, isn't it? I've found our roads are super, super busy now, and you're sort of used to that lovely lull we had on the roads at least. And now it's sort of like Grand Theft Auto again or something.
Yeah, I know, the things you don't miss, hey? We've got Madeline here from Adelaide. Hi, Madeline. Hello. And lovely Patricia from New South Wales, also the land of the free. Felicity. Hello, Felicity. So how have you coped anyway? How have you coped during, your experience, and artistically, how has it been for you?
It's been a bit of a roller coaster emotionally and mentally. I think to begin with, when it all started, I was probably like everyone was. It was just scary and unknown, and I was very focused on keeping my family safe. I think the mama bear instinct really kicked in again. And my work took a back seat for quite a long time. I had loads booked in this year and everything was cancelled almost immediately. So I just hunkered down with the boys really, and my main priority was just keeping them sort of on a level and making sure their life didn't seem too weird, and that was my main concern. And it took a while to get back into my work, especially with the whole family being at home the whole time. I work at home, and trying to find time to go and sit in my studio and actually get into the mental space that I need to become absorbed in what I'm doing was really difficult. But I found ways of motivating myself again. So I feel like I'm a bit more settled into the whole thing now. But I don't know. I don't know if everyone feels like this, but we're all kind of in this fight or flight response all the time. So the anxiety is always there, and it's just a scary time.
Yeah. I think the uncertainty of everything really hits people hard, and the kids have just been our saving grace as well. Like we've it's been wonderful having them at home, and they're ready not to be at home now. But at the same time, it was just it was so lovely having them close, and just
there had been really nice aspects to it. And my boys they're 2 years apart, so they had gone to school beforehand, and they kind of weren't as close as they were when they were tiny infants. So they've got the chance to really bond and get to know each other, and they've only had each other to play with, so they've had to make it work. And that's been wonderful, just watching their relationship grow. And that's been a good thing.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. That's good. We've got a 14-year-old and an 11-year-old. Had to think about that then, 11. And they did play a little bit, but most of the time they were avoiding each other.
Oh, no.
Or my son was avoiding my daughter. And
in their lives, they're together or they're apart. It's totally normal.
Yeah. But you grew up in a very creative family, and both your parents were artists?
Well, yes, they are. I mean, my mum would be like, I'm not an artist, but she is. She's a creative soul, and she practices ceramics, and she just has a wonderful eye for beauty and everything. She taught me to, really appreciate nature and the outdoors, and she just always encouraged us to be creative. She was an art teacher at a primary school. That very much came home with her. And my dad makes boxed assemblage art in a sort of surrealist tradition, which is just really wonderful work.
Wow.
You have to see his work to understand it really, but it's very, very clever. He's a remarkable guy. He's definitely one of my artistic role models.
Yeah. Does he do that as a profession? Like, does he have a
retired teacher? I was lucky/unfortunate that both my parents taught me at some point. I went to primary school where my mum taught, which I thought was wonderful. And my dad was my art teacher at college. He was the head of art and design there. And he taught me 3D design and sculpture, which was an interesting experience for both of us. But yeah, he's a wonderful teacher, but he's retired now. And yes, he does, when he makes time, he still makes his work and exhibits widely. And yeah, he's well respected in his field. But yeah, he's always busy. He's always got something else on the go as well. They've just finished a beautiful extension on their little cottage, and they're always doing some sort of DIY. They never stop.
Yeah. Oh, good on them. Good on them.
Yeah, definitely. They put me to shame with the amount they achieve. Definitely.
So there was no pressure on you to really perform during homeschooling?
Oh, I don't know. I think all the pressure I put on myself, really. I was so enthusiastic about homeschooling and quickly realised it wasn't quite as a joyful experience as I'd hoped it would be. We were great with the creative stuff. We're really good at making a mess and splatting paint up the walls and junk modelling. We did a lot of junk modelling. But yeah, the maths and writing side of things, I did struggle to get my children to engage. They did their work, but they were very, very happy to go back to school.
Yeah, good on them. Bless them.
Yeah.
And what about your time at school? I was reading through an interview that you've done previously, and you were talking about your time at college. And one of the things that stood out to me was and you talk about it, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'd love for you to tell people about your memory tent.
Yeah.
And something you created during college. Like what was that?
I often forget, how things become sort of peripheral to your experience, but it was, I think, there was a particular lady who taught me at college in what we call our pre-degree foundation course, which is sort of an art course that you can completely immerse yourself in for a year, and it helps you to decide what you would like to pursue at university. So, you would have a go at everything: ceramics, textiles, metalwork, glass. It was fantastic. And I had a very inspiring teacher called Yvonne Kimber, who passed recently, unfortunately, but she was so passionate about textiles, and she was always looking for new techniques, and she had a great array of books and things that we could all dive into. And she really opened my eyes to the fact that this whole kind of other world existed outside of painting portraits and making sculptures of, quite sort of typical things. And I just had so much fun that year. Me and my very good friend were on that course together, and we just had a wild time. But we got to explore lots and lots of different materials, and I got really into machine embroidery on soluble fabric, and I was machine embroidering all these kind of tapestries of decay, really. So skeletal leaves and spider webs and the detritus of nature and our everyday. And I was thinking about how that kind of could be a symbol for memory. And I decided to make an immersive installation of these long tapestries, and I created a muslin tent to house them. And I just got really lost in it. I loved it. It was brilliant. I was very, very engaged with the whole thing. So I just got carried away, and you would climb into this tent and be completely swamped by all these kind of skeletal pieces of fabric and imagery, which I just really enjoyed. I mean, I've still got the tent in the attic, scrunched up in a bin bag. And I must get it out sometime because I'd like to frame some pieces of it. It's not something I can hang up in my home because it's quite large.
Yeah.
But that's definitely where it started for me, sort of exploring concepts and how you could communicate them through textiles.
Yeah, I love that idea of actually being immersed in it as well. So you're actually
Yeah.
physically immersed inside. That's why I think that's why I love textiles as well, is that it is so tactile, and yeah, you can just that idea of being surrounded by it sounds amazing.
Yeah, definitely. I can't remember. I saw an exhibition around that time, and I'd been to Brighton, and they had this amazing textile installation in a church, and it was sort of all encompassing. And I think that's the first time I'd ever seen textiles exhibited as well. And it was just quite a powerful experience for me, walking into this church with these amazing they were string installations, but it created a real atmosphere, and it just really inspired me. So yes, I wanted to do something a bit like that, but it was the kind of feeling of being lost in your memories and trying to replicate that in some way. I don't know how successfully I managed it, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I wonder how different it would be if you like did that exercise again or created that project again, now being, you know, many years later, and having a different experience, and how it would change, and if you did them side by side or anyway, just an idea for you.
No, definitely. I mean, one of the things I would love to do if I ever get an external studio is to completely fill it with the animals, and I've been thinking quite a lot about making large plants, and I'd love to make my own jungle, basically, that was popular with animals. But yeah, that's a dream at the moment. You never know, it might happen.
Yeah.
I'm working towards it. My home is filled with animals and plants, so we're getting there.
I can see a little friend over there to your right.
Yeah, he's probably scaring everyone. He's a bit of a strange one, this one. He's wobbling, actually. There he is.
He's gorgeous.
This is Ennui.
What's his name, sorry?
Ennui, which is a French word, which is sort of, it's got very many layers to the meaning of the word, which is why I like French words. But it's kind of apathy and lethargy, that kind of boredom that just makes you go, And I think he reflects how a lot of us are feeling at the moment, sort of just a bit frustrated and stuck.
Yeah. Did you make him during lockdown?
I did. Yeah, he was. He's pretty recent piece, actually. I think I might have started making his body maybe a couple of years ago. I've always got a few bodies just waiting around to be finished off, because the time has to be right for each animal, really. But I was inspired to finish him. He went through some quite disturbing stages. I think you've got some pictures of him in progress.
I do.
One of those pieces where I had to keep going back to him. I wanted him to be very kind and kind of have a paternal atmosphere, but he just looks slightly disappointed. Yeah, that one. That's really quite scary.
That's amazing. It's so amazing. To me, I saw a dragon there, you know, I think because of obviously the and yeah, it's incredible.
That kind of spiked head thing going on. Yeah, he's got a much calmer mane now.
Yeah, it's incredible. I'm going to go deeper into your work in a minute, but I wanted to first sort of take people through a bit of a journey of your history and your creative journey before you sort of discovered the creature making. And part of that journey was jewellery making and silversmithing.
Yes, that's what I chose to do at university.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Well, it really made sense. I'm a magpie. I think a lot of us artists are complete magpies. We gather treasures and we like putting them together and playing with them. And jewellery was something I'd never had the chance to really explore at college. Not the kind of assemblage side of it, the soldering and the technical aspects of it. And when I went round visiting universities, I visited the School of Jewellery in Birmingham, which is just the most amazing building in Birmingham's Jewellery Quarter. It's like, it's an old, I'm probably going to get this wrong, it's an old jewellery factory, or at least it's in the Jewellery Quarter, so it would have been a building that had something to do with jewellery making or metal fabrication. But they've replaced the roof with a completely glass ceiling and a huge atrium. And then all the workshops are off around this atrium. And I just walked into that building and I thought, oh, I want to study here. This is fantastic. And the work that was being produced there was brilliant. And so I went there and I was lucky to be accepted. And I spent 3 wonderful years bashing metal about and setting things on fire and using chemicals. And I got really into enameling and using colour. So I did a series of enamelled people for my final project, which I really enjoyed. And after that, I went into the big wide world, intending to be a jeweller. I moved in with a friend after university. I wasn't quite ready to sort of go home and settle down. So I moved into with a friend who was still at university in the south. And had this wonderful year where I started off just doing things like working in the local pub and still doing lots of art in the background and jewellery. And then I happened across a new jewellery shop, opening in the town where I was working. And so I thought, oh, wonderful. I went and applied for a job there. And what followed was just, I think it was about 5 or 6 years, and it was fantastic. It was a really amazing experience. The lady who owned the business, my boss, just a remarkable woman that taught me so much and really bolstered my confidence. And she put me in positions that I was able to feel a bit more sort of self-empowered. And I worked my way up in that company, and I ended up going to India and on buying trips and having quite a lot to do with the design process and making jewellery behind the scenes. And it was really, really fab. But it did kind of teach me that perhaps jewellery wasn't the product that I wanted to spend the rest of my life selling to people and making for people. I loved the atmosphere in the shop and the work atmosphere, and I love my colleagues, but some of our clientele were difficult. And I think jewellery is one of those things that it's very, very personal to the client.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily the artist. I mean, there is some amazing art jewellery out there, and you can take it that way. But no, I just had started making the animals before I left the business, and that just spoke to me more. It felt like I was able to put more of myself into that, and it allowed me to embrace the creativity. It was the right thing for me, if you know what I mean. And jewellery wasn't necessarily. It also coincided with starting to want to open my own business and starting a family and things like that. And practically, it was also easier to work with textiles than metal.
Yeah. Well, it sounds really.
It was a very formative part of what I do now, definitely. And a lot of those techniques I still use. I still use a lot of metalwork, and I will probably go back to making jewellery when I have more time.
Yeah.
And I don't regret pursuing that first at all. That was definitely an important part of me becoming who I am at the moment.
Yeah. And I like how you say that, at the moment.
Yeah.
Because you're so young, you've got such a young family, you've got such a wonderful career already as an artist, and who knows what's next, like, isn't that the magic of life?
I like that. I don't ever want to sort of be one thing. I think this idea of a career for life doesn't really sit with me. I love what I'm doing, but I would also like it to develop and change, and just keep saying yes to every opportunity and seeking out opportunities, because it's just been amazing where these animals have taken me and the people I've met. But yeah, it changes. It is changing all the time. And I think especially now we're changing our ways of working. So who knows what's next?
Yeah, exactly. But no
Sorry,
story.
my dog sitting on my feet. I've got my dog sitting on my feet, which is why I keep glancing down to see what she's doing.
That's okay. She can join in.
Oh no, she's fine. She's back on the sofa now.
But I don't think a story about you and how you started would be complete without the story of Flossie, though. And there's probably a few people watching who are your fans or have worked with you that know about Flossie. And it was one of the things I totally remember when I very first met you and I watched your beautiful slideshow and I was like, oh, Flossie, that's so lovely. Would you like to share that story with people who may not be familiar with it?
Yeah, I think it changes a little bit every time because there's quite a lot of hello, Magella, lovely Magella. Yeah, there's quite a lot of different threads to the Flossie story because she went on to do other things after she was in this first exhibition. So we had, yeah, there's Flossie. She's a bit old and tired already in that picture. That's outside my gallery in Chichester. My friend and I had made a fabric installation of beach balls in a waterside, I've forgotten what they're called. There's a proper name for them, but it's a water-powered lift that goes up and down the cliff to the seaside, to the beach, and that's in Folkestone. And we'd been asked to do an installation there. So we thought, oh, we'll fill it with fabric beach balls because we both really like sewing and doing things with cloth. And so we made about 50 or 60 fabric beach balls, and the posters there actually, stuffed them all in this waterside lift, which was really good fun, quite an undertaking, but got a good response. And off the back of that, we were asked to make something for a beach hut art trail closer to where we lived. So we decided to make a fabric donkey, a life-size fabric donkey. And I think we had about 4 days before it needed to be ready. So we just pulled all the materials we could find from our home. We made a frame out of wood and logs from the wood pile and leftovers from my partner, who's a builder and carpenter, I should say. And yeah, we made this frame. We wrapped it in old winter duvets and old sheets. And then we patchworked on top of it with old clothes and fabrics we had gathered. And yeah, just kept going until this animal emerged, which was wonderful. We had a little Jack Russell at the time called Charlie, who was my sister-in-law's dog. And the minute we popped the eyeballs into this donkey, the dog went absolutely mad and was barking at it. And we thought, oh, it looks quite lifelike. So we just kept on going and kept on adding things we had around. And Flossie was born, and she just totally won my heart. She kind of appeared in this haze of 4 nights and 4 days of just extreme stitching, a little bit of red wine. And yeah, she came into being, and I just adored her, and I wanted to keep going and keep making animals because I thought I just found some real magic in that process. It was really good fun. And still my favourite. I love her. She's very, well, I say she, they change sex all the time. So she's meant to be a he, but sometimes I call her she. Yeah. Yeah, she's, you know, gender fluid. It's fine. But she's aged, and we've dragged her around all over the place. One of the big things I remember, we had the opportunity to exhibit at the Art Car Boot Sale in Brick Lane in London with a collective from Kent. And my dad came up with us, and he had to carry this donkey on his back through the back streets of London. And just people were just, you know, stopping him and taking photos on their phone and just shouting, "There's a man with a donkey on his back." And it was just, yeah, she's just been a companion on a lot of really fun times.
She's an icon. Where is she now? Does she live with you?
She doesn't live in my house. There's not enough room. She totters unstably at the studio, which is my mother-in-law's pottery studio where I run workshops. And she often is put outside the studio to let people know they're there because they have a shop as well. And yeah, she's been ridden and cuddled and loved in many ways by many, many people. So her back is broken. Her back legs are barely standing up. I do have to fix her at some point. She needs fixing up a little bit. But I love the way she's aged. I like that she's sort of, we never tried to sell her. She's just kind of been everybody's sculpture, and everyone's just been allowed to, you know, pose their children on her back for photos. I wouldn't recommend doing that anymore. But yeah, she's been well loved, and
yeah, we have an Australian author here and illustrator, and her name's Alison Lester. Sorry, it almost lost me then. And I just, when you were talking, it reminds me, she has a little gallery in Fish Creek, and she has a horse out the front of her, a pony out the front of hers. And, you know, when the kids were little, they'd jump on it, and you often see little kids jumping on it and things. But it's certainly nothing like Flossie. It looks like a commercial type, or I don't know the story behind it. I can't pretend. It's definitely not like Flossie, but it could have been gifted to her, but it looks like one of her characters.
More robust.
Yeah, but what an
it could be termed a health and safety problem now. We try to encourage people not to try and get on her back because it's not
yeah, poor Flossie. But I had a bit of a giggle when you talked about your Jack Russells enjoying, you know, when the eyes
does that now. You put the eyes in and suddenly they sort of, yeah, the dogs aren't keen, and lots of dogs bark at Flossie still up at the studio. But yeah, I think that was just a moment where we thought, oh wow, you can create something that isn't necessarily lifelike in any way, I mean, or realistic, but has life, and you know, you can sort of see a bit of a soul in it. And I think, yeah, when Charlie, the Jack Russell, started barking at Flossie, there was a little bit of that magic, and I thought, oh, yeah. It still happens with every single sculpture. You get to that point where you're like, oh, there you are. I can see you now.
And what does that happen like throughout the process? Have you noticed a trend, or is it different with every creature you create? Or
it is different with most of them. It's usually when I put eyes in. So I will model the shape of the body and the head first, and then I'll put the eyes in. And once you sort of put the eyelids around the eyes, it brings a realism to it. But that isn't always necessarily the point when I feel engaged with the sculpture as a soul-bearing entity, if you know what I mean. Yeah, it can just be when you tweak the position of an arm or something. A lot of my mother and child pieces, the mother didn't come alive until I realised she needed a child. And as soon as I put the child in the arms of the mother, it's like, there you are. There's your character. Yeah. It's like they were missing something, waiting for something. And yeah, that happens with quite a lot of the sculptures. Some of them, you can see it right from the first shape you make. You can say, I can see who you're going to be. But some of them, it takes a lot longer. And some of them sit on the shelf for 6 years, being unloved, until I finally go, this is the right fabric to make that come alive.
Yeah. I kind of felt a bit sad when you were talking about that, relating it to maybe humans that sort of sit on the shelf waiting to be discovered or find out who they are. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I really do.
Yeah.
Or waiting to find their own inner light that drives them forward or out of whatever situation they're sort of sitting in.
Yeah. And you bring them to life. And it's almost like the animal dictates its own evolution. Like,
well, definitely, yeah. They take over, which I think that for me is what's caught me. You get to a point and you're just trying to help them realize who they want to become. It sounds completely bananas, but when you spend most of your life staring at these cloth creatures, you do kind of, you're wanting to find a personality, you're wanting to find something that communicates a feeling or an emotion. I don't want to just make little, you know, dead-eyed sculptures that sit there. I want them to be able to trigger a response in the audience, or just for people to be able to relate to them in some way. And to do that, you need to find an aspect of humanity or emotionality in them.
That's beautiful.
I'm trying to do anyway. It doesn't always work.
Well, I've always thought that, I mean, the artist is in their work, and that energy that you get, like you purchase a piece of work not just because you like it, but and usually if it's an investment, it's because you do have a connection either with the story around it or the energy of the artist, or
yeah, you hope so, definitely.
Yeah, you want something that artist has in your life, and you want to look at it every day, and you want to be reminded of that every day. And
or you have a common ground with that artist, and what they've put into it speaks to you, because we all have so much common ground. We all have these things that we can relate to, and a lot of them do kind of center around human emotion. And yeah, I think the animals are quite a safe vehicle for that.
Yeah. Why animals for you? Where does their love of animals stem from?
Well, I mean, like any young girl, I've always loved animals. I've always loved all sorts of animals, but I just sculpturally, I love the different shapes and the different textures of animals. I love their different personalities. I assign everybody a spirit animal, and I don't know, I find animals easier to relate to than human beings. They're less complicated. Well, they're not. They're amazing and so complex, and there are so many different species, but they're just an endless source of inspiration. I don't know anybody that doesn't like some kind of animal. And yeah, I've never really felt like making humans.
Yeah.
I have made dolls and things in the past, but they've always had kind of an animalistic quality. They've never looked very human-like.
Yeah. That's interesting, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, when I was little, I loved things like fairies and spriggans and all these sort of mythical creatures. And I quite like that they're the step in between the animal kingdom and the human kingdom. You know, there's this whole kind of imaginative world of creatures that we don't see every day that you can kind of imagine are there. Yeah, so there is a kind of a link to humans, but I just prefer animals.
I don't think that you're alone there. I think a lot of people probably feel the same way. I've got a few more questions to ask you, but I just wanted to put out there too that anybody watching, please feel free to pop a question for Bryony in the comments, and I'll make sure that we ask you. So I just had one question, and then I've got a question that was sent through prior to going live. But do you ever struggle selling a piece? Like, is there anything that you create that is just too close to your heart, or there's too much of you in it and you can't physically sell it or give it away?
Yeah, there are pieces that I've maybe not made very much of an effort to sell, and I do tend to keep some of them around until someone gets in touch and says, oh, that piece wouldn't happen to be available, would it? Because I think some of them are waiting to find their perfect person. And I have quite a few different stories of people uniting with these artworks and me thinking that's why I've kept hold of that for 3 years, because it had to go to that person, because it meant something to them, that goes beyond what I intended. But
Mm.
them, it's very, very special. So I do think some of them are waiting for the right person. Some of them I'm really attached to, so I've kept. I mean, Flossie was a joint work with my friend, so she's not mine to sell, and she doesn't belong to either of us now. She belongs to everybody.
Yeah.
So there are lots of reasons why I might hold a piece back or not try particularly hard to sell it. I mean, I've listed quite a lot of work recently, and things hang around. The mice usually go quite quickly, and birds, and the sweeter looking pieces usually go quite quickly. But my monkeys and things like that, the larger works, often hang around for quite a while, and I'm totally fine with that because I do develop a relationship with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like seeing your kids fly the nest. It's sort of wonderful and heartbreaking at the same time. I love it when people buy a piece and then send me a picture of it in their house, because then I know where it is. I know where my child has ended up.
Yeah, I can understand that. I can definitely understand that. And I was so surprised as well because we'll put a link up to your website in the comment section, so anyone that's not familiar can jump on and have a look. But the size, the actual scale of your work is incredible. Like when you held out the monkey before, I was like, the website doesn't, I mean, you've done a great, don't get me wrong, you've done a great job. But
no, it's something I find really hard to communicate is the scale of, I mean, here's
whoa.
Bronwen.
Hi, Bronwen.
She's a life size. They are life size. They are quite large next to us. But, you know, if I was more comfortable taking photos of myself, or I could find a willing victim, I would take a photo of a person holding them, because that's the only real way you can communicate the scale of them online.
Yeah.
It's the bigger pieces as well. People often need to see them in the flesh to really engage with them. I mean, I don't think that monkey comes across not well. He looks lovely in photos, but you don't quite capture the personality in a static image.
Yeah. Well, you've done a great job because you take all your own photos, don't you?
Yeah, I don't want to do that anymore. If anyone wants to, please say. I find it really, really hard. I'm not good with technology, and I don't think I'm a bad photographer.
No,
but I do struggle with it. I do find that one of the sort of most labour-intensive parts of selling my work is doing it justice in photographs.
I used to be a photographer, and I struggled with it as well.
I think it's because you are, as a photographer, people are usually looking for that ideal image, and you can always see the one thing that you're not quite happy with.
Yeah.
But the audience wouldn't necessarily agree with you. They'd say, oh, that's an amazing photo. What are you on about? But yeah, you can always critique your own work in ways that other people wouldn't necessarily.
Yeah. And sometimes I would face the opposite, where being a portrait photographer, that you'd be taking photos, and specifically of women and mums and new mums and stuff, that they would pick up every imperfection, and I'd be looking at it going, wow, this is perfect, and I'm actually embracing these imperfections, but they'd be like, can you Photoshop this out? Can you Photoshop that out? And we're like, well, I can, but is that what you want to remember?
Really difficult, yeah.
But I would have
thought about that actually. But
taking photos of your work would be like taking a portrait. Like you'd have to, setting up the scene, setting up the scenario, getting them comfortable.
They don't have much of an opinion. They're like, oh, can you just stop and sell us already? But I can imagine with real human beings, that is a very tricky thing. Speaking as someone that actually hates having my photo taken, I detest it. I do find it very difficult.
Yeah, I love working with people like you though, because that's a challenge for me. And so I would work with you. And I don't want to talk about photography and what I used to do, but I find that the challenge though, is to make people feeling comfortable in front of the camera and almost forget that the camera's there. you know, so I would often give people invitations to interact with each other as a family, and they just forget I was there, and I'd just be snapping away.
Brilliant, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
and yeah. When I come to England next, I'll do you a portrait, a family portrait. I'll come out.
yeah,
And
that would be amazing.
we'll have tickle
I
fights.
had a little bit of experience of that. I accidentally became a life model just just before I gave birth to my first child. I met a really amazing artist through my gallery, and she said, "Oh, I'd love you to sit for me." And I'm really bad at saying no. I was like, okay, maybe. I like your work, but
I don't think people could say that they'd accidentally become a life model.
Oh, it was very much an accident, and it's definitely not on my CV. But also, I was, going through my first journey into motherhood, so there was that side of it appealed to me. She said, "Oh, I just take lots of photos, and then I work from the photos." I was like, okay, I think it might be quite cool to have some photos of my first pregnancy. So I did it because of that. But yeah, one of the things that she often says to me is, "I just love you because you're so awkward." So you're a really interesting model. I actually take as a compliment. But yeah, she likes angles and awkwardness, so I fit that bill. That's fine.
Were you happy with your images? Did you get to keep them?
Yeah, they're in a secret folder somewhere. Like, they're not anything. I've got 2 of her paintings of me as well, and I never know where to hang them in my house because I don't really want myself hanging on the wall. It seems a bit weird, but I love the paintings, and she does really capture personality and feeling, and she's done that in the 2 pictures I've got. But yeah, they're not necessarily I want something that people come to my house to see, because of me. So it's weird, but yeah, she's an amazing artist, really amazing artist.
Just keep them up your sleeve for when you really need to embarrass your sons.
Yeah. Oh, I had one hanging in my workshop, and the plumber came over, and I forgot it was there. Like, oh my God. They are really beautiful. They deserve to be up on the wall. They're in my bedroom at the moment, which is
beautiful.
That's not
You're extremely brave, Bryony, and I want to get to your adventures down in Australia and how brave you were to come out here with having such a young family. But first of all, I just want to ask a question on behalf of the beautiful Kaz Holmes, who is also a friend of yours. And she says here, she teaches on a Friday. So she says, "I have sitting in my bedroom a lovely magpie I commissioned from you last time we were together with Fibre Arts Australia. We recognised a shared magpie tendency." She says, "I remember Brie saying as she created magpie, as part of her process of making it became clearer to her what the materials worked or what materials worked." So you touched on that. And her question is, your pieces are about finding the identity of a creature and letting the cloth speak to you as part of that process. Can you discuss a little further? And I guess we were discussing it a bit, but if you'd like to sort of discuss a little bit further about how the cloth actually speaks to you and how you choose the cloth, maybe, that would be wonderful for Kaz.
Oh, thank you, Cass. That's a lovely question. Well, I think fabric and cloth has always been the starting point for me. I'll often sit down not with thinking I want to make this type of animal, but I want to do justice to this piece of fabric. And I love fabric that is used and bears the marks of, having been used by humankind and loved. And I love hand embroidered linens, which can be really old, and they're just sort of sat on the bottom shelf in a charity shop, an op shop. And someone's spent hours sitting there sewing that, and now it's unloved and forgotten. And I want to give those pieces new life because they are exquisitely beautiful and they speak of lives gone by. I mean, it's reflecting on this whole memory thing again. I just think cloth and fabric is the perfect vehicle for communicating something of the human experience. And I am quite eclectic in the fabric I collect and use, and I mostly use reclaimed fabric. Sometimes I am tempted and buy a little bit of new stuff if the pattern really speaks to me or something. But the stuff that really speaks to me is always something that's already been used, already had a previous life. And I think that adds so much to the work. Maybe just because it triggers those feelings in me and I make up a little story in my head, or not on purpose, not sort of consciously, but it gives me certain emotions and they translate into the piece. It's also, I mean, Ralph there, that mouse, is sometimes it's just the way a piece of fabric frays, or the way when you pull it slightly out of shape, it suggests movement and sort of skin and flesh and eyelashes. And I just think it's the most wonderful medium for sculpture because it has so much character in both its pattern, its design, its texture, the way it sort of comes apart. I just, yeah, fabric is the heart of it all, really. I mean, that was Cass's magpie just there, and that was a very, the blouse on the head is this kind of shiny, double woven, kind of silky, purpley, bluey, goldy Christmas kind of blouse. And I would not wear it, but it is the most amazing fabric for magpies and anything that has that kind of sheen to it, like jays and, yeah, penguins I've used it on as well. It's just a beautiful, beautiful fabric to use in that way. But I can't help but look at that magpie and think of the woman that maybe wore that blouse to a Christmas party.
Yeah.
Which is quite a magpie thing, I think. They collect shiny and wonderful objects like that. But yes, I think it was when me and Cass decided we shared magpie-like tendencies that I realised that that's quite a common thing to lots of different artists. And I was collecting fabric and cloth long, long before I decided to make fabric animals.
And I'm just showing a few images of your collection.
Oh, my bottom drawer. That's my favourite drawer.
Oh, it looks amazing. And this is your beautiful studio.
It is. That's the tidy side of it. You do not want to know what's going on behind the camera.
Yeah. Wow.
Usually, that desk is usually about 50 centimetres high with piles of fabric. And there's a kind of little hole in the middle where the sculpture sits. And I have to sit there and pull all these bits of fabric over. And that's what takes a lot of the time, is just deciding what fabrics do that sculpture justice. And yeah, sometimes it just takes years or months to find the right piece of fabric that makes me think, yes, that's going to work, and this sculpture can now move forward because it's found the fabric it's been waiting for.
That's so beautiful. It is such a process, isn't it? From finding the right fabric to finding the right fit to finding the right owner, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's just so painfully protracted sometimes, the process, but it's always worth it in the end. I just can't bring myself to let go of things if I'm not happy with them, if they haven't become who they were meant to be. I recently made quite a large owl, which I think you had up. It's on a green background. And that piece was a demonstration piece initially. And it's been sat on the shelf for quite a few years. And I just couldn't bring myself to like it. It just wasn't speaking to me at all. But then I found this Sanderson linen, which is this wonderful yellow sort of faded linen that is left over from someone making a sofa or something. And I popped that on its belly instead of the lace it had on its belly. And it just suddenly came into being for me. and that dictated the rest of the piece. And now it's one of my favourite owls I've ever made. But for a long time it was unloved and sat on the shelf. But yeah, it was just waiting for that piece of linen to bring it together.
Yeah. Aww. Jennifer's asked, could you say where do the features come from? Taxidermy supplier?
All over really. I love using the sort of glass buttons that you get from sort of the late Victorian era to about the 1950s, black glass buttons, which also sometimes have wonderful gold edging and silver edging, and were just really beautiful objects within themselves. They make fantastic eyes. I do use taxidermy eyes sometimes. I use a supplier from Russia because they're the nicest ones I found, which are sort of hand painted behind a glass cabochon. But I do prefer using found objects or glass buttons for the eyes, to the taxidermy eyes. But it just depends on the creature which one I'll use. I just try everything out and that's your eye. But yeah, more recently I have bought quite a few taxidermy eyes, just because I'm wanting to explore some more animals, some more species. So I've got a stock of fish eyes, goat's eyes, bison eyes, cats and rabbits and all sorts of things. But sometimes the eye that the taxidermy supplier says is meant to go with a rabbit looks much nicer in a cat, so I don't use species relevant eyes, if you know what I mean. But yeah, I can use anything, marbles. And then for claws I'll use old hair clips cut up, paper fasteners remodeled, or sometimes I'll get my piercing saw out and pierce some copper to use for their claws and features. But it's just, again, it's the right thing for the animal.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, makes perfect sense. Madeline's asked, how do you store your gathered fabrics so that you can access the right bit when you need it? Yeah,
don't ask, Madeline.
That's a good question. We all want to know how to be more organised, for sure.
I'm trying to be more organised, and everything is kind of folded. And I have this wonderful old CD cabinet that my mum's next door neighbour gave me, which it's just there on the left in that photo under the blue shelves, and you can pull out those drawers, and I've folded it all and it's all stacked on its side. So that's all my really small patterned pieces, so I can just pull the drawer out and I can see everything. And then I keep them in on the other side of that photo. You can see lots of fabrics stacked up in wooden boxes. So they're all open and visible on that side. And those are all my favourite fabrics. But behind the camera, there are several linen baskets, Alibaba baskets that you put your laundry in. I keep lots of scraps in those because I don't throw any of my scraps away. And then I've got my workshop fabrics, which are neatly folded and stacked in plastic carry boxes so that they're nice and clean and pardon me, and accessible for my workshop attendees. Lots of different ways. And then there's often a big pile of fabric on the floor discarded as I'm creating, and every so often I have a big sort out and donate some to local schools or charity shops because I have got far too much.
Yes.
And I never stop buying it.
No.
One of my major hobbies is thrift shopping and finding new fabrics.
Do people send you fabrics as well? Do they gift you fabrics?
Yes. And some of the most amazing things come out of those fabrics sometimes. Lots of amazing people have given me fabrics, and sometimes just that donation becomes part of the story. When I was sorry, I've got a frog in my throat. When I was at the gallery, we had this lovely elderly gentleman that would come in quite often and just have a little chat. And over the years, it transpired that he'd lost his wife. And he found out that I did all these things with textiles. And he said, oh, my wife was a dressmaker, and I would love to give you all her textiles, that I haven't been able to take her dressmaking room apart. And I'd love to give them to you. It feels like that would be honouring them rather than just getting rid of them. And it was a very emotional exchange. And I just felt I really wanted to do justice to his wife's fabrics. And they were dressmaking fabrics from the 1980s. So not all of them necessarily spoke to me aesthetically, but I was determined to use every single fabric. And I found out different ways of using them and working them more, looking at them sculpturally rather than as a pattern sheet or something, you know, a colourway. Rather than painting with them, I looked at them as sculpting materials. So yeah, that was really lovely. But lots of people say, oh, is Bryony coming round? Yeah, grab a bag of old clothes, dump them on them.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I think people like that. They like knowing that it's going to be used. And so, yes, I'm very lucky. I'm a recipient of lots of lovely things.
Yeah. I was thinking of you today. I've got like an old hat box, like a top hat box from there, like 1800s, 1883, I think it is. But it's one of those things, like you always want to try and use something that you have. So silly me, well, not silly. I mean, it was great. It was a pot plant holder. So I would have the pot inside of it. And it would just sit out, and it's just gorgeous. It's got like an old label on it. I've left it outside. I meant to bring it in. But today I was cleaning it out because it got a little bit musty on the inside because I overfilled it with water. And anyway, so I was airing it out, and then it's just sort of started not to crumble in my hands, but I was picking at it, let's be honest.
I've done the same sort of thing. Especially with ones that you put plants in.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But it had this red, and I don't know if it's velvet or velour, but it's red velvet material. And then that sort of was on the bottom of it. And I thought, oh, it needs to be aired out, or maybe I'll give it a wash. So I was pulling it apart. And then underneath I turned it over, and there was another label about the manufacturer of this.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, so it's just this laid thing. But I thought about this fabric, and I thought, what am I ever going to do with it? Like, and I thought, I'll send it to you, and you'll be, I'll give it a wash first. It's a bit woofy because it got wet.
I love velvet, especially when it started. There's nothing like old velvet.
Oh, really?
Get enough of it. I've got lots of newish velvet, but it's the old stuff. It's just so much softer and more flexible. And then, just something about deteriorating velvet that's very romantic and imagination for me.
Oh yeah,
crumbling old stately homes and ghosts of the past. It's great.
Oh, I wish Daniel, my husband's listening. Dan, can you go get that hat box out near the kitchen? He'll go get it for us. We can have a look. So.
No, it's funny you say that because I went to some brocante shops in France, and I bought a old plant pot holder, and it was lined with this faded floral pink fabric, and it was falling apart. But I washed that and used it on quite a lot of animals, and it was fabulous.
It's a bit delicate.
Wow.
I've actually got to wash it, but that's the fabric. But you can see what it was, you know.
Yeah.
Like, and then this was what it was wrapped around. So it was wrapped around this, and then that was on the bottom, which is like this label of.
Oh, that's fab. That looks like a page of one of Glenys' books.
Well, yeah, maybe I could send this to Glenys.
Yeah, I can see Glenys using that.
And then here I'll put this just so you can get the full context. Like, this is the actual hat box.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah. And then underneath it, like, used to have a label on it, I think, of like who owned it. And it's just amazing. I love it.
I love the the colour and the patination on it.
Yeah, and like it says Melbourne Melbourne there, Melbourne to Sydney, Motel Metropole Sydney, and then it was going to Melbourne. And anyway, I digress, but I just want to...
I love it. That's the sort of treasure that would have me skipping around for a week, definitely.
Yeah, I wanted to share that with you. So I'll give this a wash and I'll post it over to you.
Oh, and wait till I come. Well, I'll be waiting for a few years.
We all need a treasure. But
I'd love to have it.
Yeah, I did want to touch on, and I know I've kept you for about an hour. I'm so sorry.
Wow. No, that's fine. I didn't realise.
Yeah, but I wanted to touch on your journey to Australia and also just shout out to the amazing, you spoke a little bit earlier about the amazing people in your life, like the people that really encouraged you through school and college. And you didn't mention Derek, but I read about Derek.
Yeah. I love Derek.
Yeah, who really recognised that your work and what you did was really out of the box. And then a few years ago, when your kids were really little, Glenys Mann reached out to you from all the way to Australia.
Yeah, that was a roller coaster.
And she invited you to come to Australia and teach. And that was that the first time that you had actually?
I think I met you then. Yeah.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, and so I just wanted to talk, just congratulate you for being so brave. I know how hard it is to leave your kids and travel overseas. I've done that myself when they were very young, and that's hard. So congratulations for being brave, and also just a shout out to Glenys as well for reaching out to the people that she recognises have something great in them as well, not necessarily for their huge Instagram following or their Facebook following or anything like that, but just for championing the art.
Well, definitely.
Yeah.
Honestly, they are amazing women, and what they have cultivated with Fibre Arts Australia is, you can't describe it unless you've been there.
Yeah.
The most magical atmosphere that I've ever experienced. I've never experienced anything like that before. It was really wonderful, and it's the students, it's the whole team, and it's just the way they've set it up, and the other artists. It was a really brilliant time, and it was absolutely petrifying leaving my kids, and I still think, how on earth did I do that? But yeah, I mean, I was pregnant with my second child when Glenys asked me if I'd like to come. And I remember looking at my partner and thinking, dare I ask him if I should say yes to this? But he's brilliant. He's really supportive, and he's a fantastic dad. So I had no trouble. I knew my children would be safe and fine. I just knew I'd miss them desperately, and I did. But I also feel like that was such a massive leap for me. It was very empowering, and it took my journey on a completely different tangent. The teaching on that first course in Ballarat was petrifying. I hadn't taught on that scale before, and these women, these wonderful, amazing students, they are so talented and so knowledgeable, and they're completely intimidating in every way. So it was a real steep learning curve. But it was amazing. The things they produced were just mind-blowing, and I learned so much from every single person on that course, and they were all very gentle with me and very encouraging, and it was one of the most fantastic experiences, and I can't thank the Fibre Arts team enough for that, because it definitely did make me look at teaching differently. And now that is a major part of what I do, and I love it so much. I have some fantastic students over here in the UK, and I managed to have a short workshop with them in the summer, and that really lifted my spirits after however many weeks of lockdown. And I think we all got so much from it. It was like a kind of 3-week holiday in the Maldives was the equivalent. It was so refreshing, and just made me feel a bit more alive again and a bit less apocalyptic. And yeah, the start of that was Glenys asking me to Australia. I still have no idea how she found me or why she asked me, but I'm so grateful that she did.
Yeah, that's her superpower, though. You know, and you know her and now Noni put on an amazing event. But yeah, certainly a superpower to bring.
Yeah,
you
definitely.
here and
I don't know why the magic happens, but it definitely happens. They are, quite the team.
And you touched on the amazing community there. And one of the things that was a highlight when I met you was that we do this, Glenys organises and Noni organised this beautiful auction at the end of the event, 5-day event. And so you can actually, everybody can bid for beautiful artwork. And one of them was this.
Found him.
I found him. He wasn't actually he was hiding on a shelf. He was sitting up in my daughter's bedroom. He doesn't have a name. I don't know. Isn't he beautiful?
He is gorgeous.
You remember making him?
I don't know if I did, Ange. I don't know if it's mine or Suzanne's.
Oh, maybe.
It's absolutely lovely.
Well, I don't know if he's yours, but he was definitely inspired by
yeah, he was. I think he was a product of our course, because these poor students, I forced them all to make a mouse.
Yeah.
On the first day of the course, and they all look at me like, I never signed up to make a mouse. I want to make a
kangaroo.
Kangaroo. I'm like, no, you're going to make a mouse first. If you can make a mouse, you can make anything. But he's delicious, isn't he?
Inspired by your course.
Yeah.
What happened was, I think it was Suzanne, and she bid on it and she won it, and then she gave it to my daughter who was there.
So lovely.
Yeah, that's the type of people that are there and the type of community that's been.
They really are. I mean, I've just made so many friends from Australia, and I love you guys. You're amazing. I really miss you. I wish I was there. I was meant to be. I would have been coming home about now from Australia if this year hadn't taken a backflip. But no, I just really thank my lucky stars that Glenys asked me over, because it's just been fantastic. And I've just met so many brilliant people.
I know. I think you might have met Kirsten Ingmar there too.
Oh, Kirsten. Yes. I adore Kirsten. I'm sorry, Kirsten. I'm still saying it wrong.
I know. It's a hard one.
Big hugs for Kirsten.
Kirsten's amazing. Yeah. And Susan says, I have a similar little mouse from the last Fibre Arts event. Yeah.
Yeah, the mice are repopulating the world, I think. People learn to make those on the workshops, whether they do a long one or a short one, and people then go on to just make hundreds of them and give them to all their friends. So people are always saying to me, I've got a mouse. And I'm like, really? I don't even know you.
It's a plague.
No, there is, but it's fine. Fabric mice are all right. They're not going to take over just yet.
Yeah, exactly. There's just a couple of questions that have come through. Mary said, do you carve the beaks of your birds from wood?
Yes, some of them. So that magpie that you showed, that's carved from wood. The owl beaks, I generally use duffel toggles and carve those into a beak shape, because that one I think is just a duffel toggle that isn't carved. That one's carved on the Emerson, the large one. He's got porcupine quills for claws, actually, Emerson, which I got from one of the wonderful stalls at Fibre Arts Australia.
Wow.
But yeah, I do. I like carving. I collect driftwood. Who doesn't? And I often find that that's the best way with birds, because they all have such different beaks.
Yeah.
I like to not get it right necessarily, but I like to be able to play with the scale and the size of things.
Yeah. Yeah. Philomena watches all the time. Hi, Philomena. Thank you for your comment. She's just connected, but can you describe the process of how you make your sculptures? We've kind of gone through that, Philomena, so please have a re-listen. But I'd just like to add to that. Can you talk us through duck phase?
Oh God. Yeah. So during my workshops in Australia, I don't know if it just happened in 2018. I can't really remember if we discovered the phrase duck phase before that. But in 2018, Glenys and Noni would visit our workshop. They would pop their heads around the door in the early stages of people's creature creation, and they'd go, "Ah, you're still in duck phase," and then they'd move on. And that's basically an early stage of the creature's evolution. So most of them go through this quite strange stage at the beginning where they're just a stuffed shape that's being pulled into shape with stitch, and maybe you've added a couple of features on or something. But they all look a bit like ducks, or well, there's lots of different things they can look like. But yeah, I think Glenys coined the term duck phase, and now I use it all the time. I'm like, no, it's still in its duck phase, still evolving. Just give it time. But yeah, duck phase is probably the hardest time for the students, because they have this amazing idea of what they want to create, and it's a building process. So you're adding to this sculpture all the time, and that moment hasn't come yet where you can suddenly see what it's going to become, and you don't necessarily feel like it's ever going to become what you want it to. And I'm always saying, stick with it, keep the faith, just keep adding things and it will appear. But yeah, that's duck phase.
I love it. I think that people could relate to duck phase in so many places within their lives. Like, yeah. So maybe we could all have a little saying that when we think of you, or when we're going through a hard time and something's not quite working, we just think to ourselves, duck phase.
Yeah, keep adding stuff, or take it away. Or just go and have a glass of wine and it'll all be better in the morning.
Yeah, exactly. So in saying that, I always ask towards the end, or at the end of an interview, I always ask of the artist, and if you've watched any before, you knew this was coming, didn't you?
And I still haven't thought of an answer.
We could just say duck face. So if there was one quote or something that you'd like to be remembered for as an artist, or even just as a human, it doesn't have to be an artist, like what would that be for you?
It's another quote that came out of that class that I think duck phase originated from, and it doesn't sound very life affirming or something you want to be remembered for, but it's kind of my philosophy, which is embrace the fray. And the fray is the edge of the fabric that's falling apart. And yeah, I think that just means if you've got something that's not perfect or deteriorating, or that other people can't see the beauty in, use it and try and find the beauty in it and try and give it a purpose that gives it beauty. So embrace the fray.
Oh.
There's one particular student who will be going, no, she said that to me 1,000,000 times, but she made the most amazing frayed dog. So I feel like it was worth it.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, thank you so much. That was so insightful and beautiful and humbling to listen to your process and your work, and just the magic that you create in each and every piece is just beautiful. So we've put some links up to your website. We'll also put some links up to your Instagram. If anyone just needs a bit of love, head there, have a look at these beautiful creatures, and you can't feel sad. You really can't.
Thank you. That went very quickly.
Yes, I know. Well done, you. 1 hour and 18 minutes. Wow. But what I do now is I play a little video to say goodbye, and everybody that's still with us, please shout out some love to Bryony, and I'll put your comments up on the screen. But for now, we'll see you soon. I'll send you some. I'll wash it. I'll send you some fabric, and
I'm excited about that. Thank you.
And we'll just follow along. Wish you and your family all the best.
Yeah, you too. Have a lovely weekend. Bye, everyone. Yeah. Thank you.
I will find the video. Here we go. Thanks, everyone.